So the project today, this is end of December 2023. I've been realizing that, well, it's kind of obvious. You just don't get as much solar power in the winter. And because the sun is so much lower, with the panels flat, they get even less sun than they would if they were angled. You know, like the other solar panels around here are all angled. Going over the bumpy road, the panels are just flapping a lot. There's a lot of flex in the frame, and since the panels aren't really helping, they're just really making it worse with all of the noise of all the flapping. So I was thinking about it a couple days ago, and I'm like, well, I think I'll just take the panels off because they aren't doing much for the next 2 months, 3 months anyway. Summertime, I had enough power that if I parked it in town for a couple hours, I had enough to ride home again. Wintertime, it's insignificant, the amount of charge I get. It does seem weird to take it off, but at the same time, one, it's not helping. Two, it's actually damaging itself just from bouncing down the road. So why not just take it off while it still works? This was just held on with hose clamps because that was convenient. There's a lot of things on this build that by the time I got to here, I was so surprised it was working. I mean, it's been working great, so I didn't put as much time into some of it though. Yeah, there we go. It just so happened, actually it's a little bit loose, but this is a seat post off a bicycle that basically fit the clamp for the mirror. This is a mirror off of off of the school bus. This is the wide angle mirror. So there was a wide angle and a regular mirror on each side. So that worked out really good. This does seem kind of weird to be sitting outside in the sun and then disconnect all the solar panels, but anyway. So this one comes in from the solar, this one goes out to the battery, and then various zip ties and connections and everything. One of the panels I cut the MC4 off and just put Andersons on. The other one has the remnants of MC4s and then an Anderson anyway. So we'll get them disconnected. So as I start cutting stuff, I'll be looking for that. And then obviously try not to cut through the wires. I mean, you know, when you buy zip ties, they come in like 1,000 pack or something like that. But out here, the nearest 1,000 pack is 100 miles away. So, or you got to wait for it to get shipped from somewhere. So there's a lot of days where I'll go through this pile, and you know, that's a 2-inch piece of a zip tie. I've got places where I've reused 15 short pieces of zip ties. So battery is nearly full, so I'll disconnect that. Also, it's not windy yet, so I'm going to try to get this done, get the panel out of the wind before the wind starts blowing. So that's always a problem. That pipe has got 4,000 miles on it. I bought this in China Lake, California. That was after the trailer broke in Death Valley. That was noteworthy. The original trailer that I spent the time on welding, making everything really cool, that broke. So then I'm middle of nowhere. Well, I know where I was, but it doesn't really matter. Middle of nowhere for everybody else. At the Home Depot, buying a handful of zip ties and a piece of PVC pipe and whatever I could cobble together, and then I bought one of the little trailers you pull your kids on behind the bike. That was the trailer for the rest of the trip. That one I've still got. The other one ended up in a metal recycle pile. I'm going to put this in the bus before the wind gets a chance. I don't want to leave it sitting here just in case. That was the first panel that I bought. And you can kind of see on the end, this is where it kept hitting on stuff. It would drag the tire or it would get scraped on something. So this one is about half power. And then the second panel, that one, the guys that I rode with during the Sun Trip race or event, not actually a race, but the event, they gave it to me at the end of the race. Event, I keep saying race. It wasn't a race. Anyway, so they donated that to me, which was great. And I had actually found another panel on the side of the road that was actually working. And so at the end, I gave the one I found to somebody else, and then I kept the one that they gave me. So kind of a full circle there. These panels are flexible, but they are also fragile. So what you want to do is get them mounted to something that doesn't move very much, and then you'll be okay. Well, you'll be kind of okay. They really, they only last a couple years anyway, so kind of on borrowed time now. But like if you glued them to your roof on your RV, that would be good. That's what a lot of people do. Then at least they don't move, you know. And if you flex them a little bit and then glue them down, then they only flex once. The problem in this case is they sit there and flap, and eventually all of the little connections inside will start to break, and then you got nothing. So that's not ideal. And in this case, yeah, the bed frame I used was way too heavy, but it was free, and thanks to David for donating it. But it is just gorgeous right now, so yay for that. Unfortunately, the things that don't weigh very much are the things we want. It's the heavy things that hold up the solar panels that's really the problem. A lot of this is held together with hose clamps because they are reasonably strong and quick to work with. And I had a bunch of them. If you're going to do something like that, find a way to do it with a power driver. It's just so much easier. Cuts down on, you know, carpal tunnel or whatever. So yeah, that's totally worth it. Anyway, if you're looking at your zip tie before you cut it, you know, where the ratchety thing is, if you cut it on this side, you've got an impossibly short zip tie. If you cut it on the tail side, the part that you pulled out, you can take the leftover piece that's really sharp, pull it out with your pliers or whatever. Now you got a zip tie you can use again. So when you're taking something apart, just look. You know, it's a 4-inch zip tie that you can still use. You know, it's maybe not quite long enough to go back here, but it's good enough for somewhere. few spots I just wrapped electrical tape around because the parts were bouncing. So this just kind of dampened it out a little bit. Electrical tape usually doesn't leave much of a tape residue, so that's kind of nice. I swear half of the electrical tape I use is not for electrical purposes. Like you can see, the tape was holding it in place. Okay. This whole project is still, I consider it a rolling prototype. So hacks like taping the pipes together so they wouldn't rattle as much, that was just enough to get me to the next stage to see if it was going to work at all. You know, because the first one I built, I had a ridiculous amount of time worked into it, and it never worked. And I had months, literally months of time invested into the predecessor to this that never worked. So by the time I got to this one, I'm like, I was getting kind of jaded because I figured it wouldn't work anyway, but it seemed like this was the only idea I hadn't tried yet, you know, that I could think of. So I did not want to spend months and months trying to build this thing and then have it also not work. So then it did work, and I was like, oh, okay. The intention always was, well, if it works, go back and fix it. But then I realized it was so heavy, it really wasn't practical, especially as solar powered. It just, there was no way I could get anywhere on solar power. So it kind of shifted then. Let me only use it for days where I've got too much heavy packages at the post office. Okay. So then I just started adding more and more batteries until I had enough to get there and back. And that worked out okay, actually. You know, if I didn't ride it too often, then I didn't really care about the inefficiency as much. That's welded together. So these just slide out. So I've already got a blinking red light on the back. I don't need this to stick out as far, so when I loosen this up, I can bring this forward, and this piece goes all the way to here. So if I slide it forward, it'll reach just fine, and then I can hang my mirror off of it again. And then if I decide to, I could make a little short roof that would just cover me for shade. But this time of year, I feel better in the sun. The heat isn't a problem, so because this was a bed frame that was made to be adjustable. I'm assuming this was probably imperial size. Yeah, look at that first try. They got a welded nut, and then what would be the word? Set screws. It goes through the nut to lock it in place. And this was already like this. This, you know, I didn't make this. This was just the way it was. So you loosen up the set screws, and that just slides out, which is very cool. You slide this thing forward because it's loose in the rails. Maybe it's not loose enough. Go about there for now. I do have one wire I got to figure out what to do, how to do in here. A lot of this is held on with Velcro. I had a phone charger on here, which is still useful and handy, so, but it's running right through a hole. So I think if I can disconnect it and slide the spade connectors through the hole, that would be easier than redoing everything. I must have, I mean, obviously I didn't get these through the hole. I must have wired it after I pulled it through the hole. Okay, because that one barely fit. Alright, so now I can just put a piece of heat shrink over that. Or, I probably won't, because it's the minus side, the ground. I'm going to wrap some tape around it though. That way I don't accidentally spark something later. Now we've got a working phone charger again. Cool. Oh, that one's stuck. I need a hammer. Or a rock. Let me find a rock. The important thing is finding the correct size rock. That one is correct. Yay. I can never find my little plastic dishes in the house anymore because they're always full of hardware. But I end up reusing the same bolts over and over on projects. So quite often it'll be set up in a bolt head, washer, lock washer, nut all together. So when it's time for the next project, they're already set. Maybe like so. So how this could be, if I just reuse the same part, that'll probably work. I'll just drill new holes for this. It is going to bounce a lot, but the mirror had so much vibration from hitting the bumps anyway, it really wasn't a big deal. And with any luck, oh good, yeah, I've got enough flexibility in here. That's actually good. So I can mark the holes, drill the holes, reuse this piece. It doesn't quite line up, but I've got enough flexibility so I can pull it, which is actually good. If it's got a little bit of spring tension on it, it won't rattle nearly as much. That's what I noticed last time. Alright, kind of eyeball it. Let me make a black Sharpie mark on a painted black surface, right? Actually, it looks like I can see it. That's good. This at the same time, because if I hit it, it's just going to bounce down. Try to get a good dimple so the bit will find it. Yeah, that looks like it worked. Start with a little bit for the pilot. Don't drop it on all my electrical controls. A lot of people will say don't wear gloves when you're using power tools. I understand the sentiment. I get a lot of metal splinters when I'm doing metal work. So the amount of time I spend digging splinters out is way more than how often I would actually hurt myself from the drill. Now granted, these gloves don't do a lot of good, but still. If you start slow, make sure you're still in the mark you made. Just about at the point where bifocals would be in my future. Also, these are safety glasses, in case you're wondering. There we go. Alright, these batteries are about 8 years old, so may or may not get there. Since I have multiple tools, I usually have multiple batteries out here. Cold weather also doesn't help. Alright. You get the idea. If I screw up one, I'll probably screw up the other one too. Bolt will go through them. Also, good time to check to make sure that was actually a 1/4 inch bit. I just grabbed it randomly. Alright. Now I'll go grab the battery charger and start charging these batteries for the second hole. Right, holes have been made. Since So I know it doesn't quite exactly line up. I'm not going to worry about that too much. Shocking, doesn't quite line up. It's pretty close though. It's as much a reflection on the last time I drilled the other hole as it is on anything else. Alright, we'll give it some alignment. Oh, now I know why. That was not drilled with the same drill bit last time, so it's a little bit too small. Oops. That would make all the difference. That'll probably work. There's the old saying, see, how does it go? Good is the enemy of great, or, good enough isn't. Something I heard recently that made a lot of sense to me was just be done so you can move on to something else, because you spend way too much time trying to be perfect. Now, something like this doesn't require a lot of perfection. If you're building airplanes, yeah, you should spend a little more time. So I guess the trick is just figure out how important something is. If it's, does it need to be down to the last digit, or is it close enough and that's good enough? Now I've got enough tension on there that it still is going to flap around a little bit, but the lock nut isn't going to come off. I think that bolt head or the nut is totally in the way. Oh, that might work. Somewhere about there. It's going to have a significant bounce to it, but whatever. This whole thing bounces, but the mirror is pretty solid on that. Trying to find the target behind me so I can kind of align it. Once you're riding, you always got time to fix it anyway. Alright, so a little down. Out. Yeah, if I put this way back, it'll be better. Okay. That was the first question. How far forward do I need it to be? The further back it is, the less wobbly it'll be, so that's good. If I had it so far back that I wouldn't hit my head getting in, it would be too close, the mirror would be too close. Yeah, I need enough room to get through that, so I think that's about right. Okay, when I tighten up the set screws, that'll get a little better too. It's going to be nice because the post used to be right here in front of me. I could put the post back, I suppose, but I kind of want to get rid of it. And the post was there to support the front panel. So I think I'll just, oh, yeah. I'm going to measure these so that they're the same angle. and then we should be done. Ah, that'll be cool. I tightened up the set screws that are in the sliding piece, whatever, and it's actually a lot better. I mean, it still is going to vibrate. It is nowhere near as bad as it was. John. Blinking light still works. Oh yeah, cool. Gotta remember not to grab that too hard. Well, it's actually pretty strong. All right, man, this feels weird. I'm used to having the roof clear. Remember, no brakes. Don't run over the camera. Brakes might be a future improvement. We'll see. I do have sort of front brakes, but not very good. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. And haven't had a lot to do for videos, so sorry. Let's see if we can come up with something interesting in the new year. All right, be sure to like and subscribe and whatever else they always tell you to do. That's it for now. Stay tuned, more coming. Bye for now. Home. Oh wait, I'm not finished. I got a zip tie. Never mind. End. I'm not going to drive away into the sunset. Oh yeah, that was a good shot.